Let's face it, most people think that trauma is something that lives in our memory and our minds, right? That's what psychoanalysis and all the dogmatic medical systems teach us. Okay, first of all, just to be very clear here, I am not a medically trained professional. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. And this is why I can offer opinions that are perhaps not quite so institutionalized or dogmatic. These are not at all medical advice, etc., blah, 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 all the legal stuff we have to say, right? Okay, so trauma. The thing about trauma is everybody has it. Now, where does trauma, before we discuss how it's stored, where does it come from? Well, the large portion of the basic, deepest traumas, and through trauma, I also mean shadows, come from, for the most part, a couple of places. One of them, unfortunately, can be family. The second is one of the big ones, and this is obligatory institutionalization. Okay, it's sold to us as places of freedom of education, but they are places that children with children, adults with children, teachers are, it's supposed to be a safe place, but let's face it, they're not. There's bullying going on, there's peer pressure going on, there's following the rules rather than critical thinking, there's... Now, some people might say here, oh, but I didn't go to a government school, I went to a private school, or I went to a top institution, some boarding school somewhere. You realize there is a thing called boarding school syndrome, right? Yes, it's a real thing. We watch movies and read books, and all these things help. And when we're very young, we have books read to us. All these little things can create traumas. There are people that don't know, but the Three Little Pigs can cause trauma. Hansel and Gretel can cause trauma to very young children. There are even some My Little Pony movies that can cause trauma. The idea of that movie perhaps is to release traumas, but they actually cause them. Now, I've just named a few. I'm not trying to make any claims, or I'm just giving examples now. I've said names. Maybe I shouldn't have said names, but I'm not specifically targeting anything. They're just names that came to mind randomly. So I'm not making any allegations against any company here. But so, think about it. If we watch movies, in all those movies about schools, there are these cliques, and kids watch these movies and they get these ideas, and hey, what happens when you go to a school? Well, they have these cliques in one way, shape, or form. You've got the jocks, you've got the geeks, you've got the whatever we want to call them. They're there all around the world and everywhere. And kids are forced to fit into these things, and they're forced to sit properly and shut up and listen and pay attention, and all these things cause traumas. If you are in religions, these cause traumas. Yeah. I remember for me personally, I was brought up in a Christian country until the age of, it must have been 6 or 7. I was forced to go to church by my parents, and we were forced to do Sunday school. Yeah, I'm dyslexic. I'm ADD. How do you think Sunday school went for me? Oh yeah, another day of school. Whoopee-doo. The people that ran it, oh yeah, they were wonderful people. Sit down, shut up, do this, do that. Yeah, I remember it clearly. Luckily, I was advanced enough, even by the age of 6 or 7, to organize at home with my siblings to stop going to school. Yes. So I managed to get out of that one quite young. So that's just one example of how traumas come out. Now, traumas can come out everywhere. You can even have traumas from adverts. If it hits you wrong, if you're in a slightly wrong place, it's like the becoming afraid of a spider because you're in the shower and you're washing your hair and you're relaxing, and suddenly it doesn't do anything. You just see a spider crawl across the wall. And if you're at the wrong place mentally, and that causes a hypnotic trigger, suddenly you've got a trauma and you fear spiders. So these things can happen anywhere, anytime, for any reason. But there are ones that are forced upon people. Talk about, obligatory institutionalization. These places, in the vast majority of people, cause some level of low self-esteem, possibly social anxiety, even for those that pretend not to, that are very boisterous, that are very egotistical, they show. But it's very interesting when you go deeper with these people and you actually start to see how unhealthy their relationship with themselves is. There are many, many, many traumas. I can list them all. I'm not going to go through them, but we understand what traumas are, right? They can be shocks. You fall off a bike, you hurt your knee. That can be a physical and mental traumatic experience. So these things we understand through the standard science, that the dogmatic things, that they're stored in memory and form part of our character. They're character building exercises. Okay, that's partially right. Yet these are not just memories that are stored somewhere, perhaps in the brain, because we know memory isn't actually in the brain now. But they are stored within the physical body. Some people are now saying this relates directly to the fascia system, but again, perhaps it's true. Yet older systems might describe it slightly differently to simply being within the fascia. It can be so many things. It can be stored in so many places. There are many things now, even medically, there are psychiatrists and psychologists talking about, for example, irritable bowel syndrome being very frequent in women who have had children, who sort of gave up their dreams in life to look after their kids, and they get to a stage where they realize that their lives haven't been as personally fulfilled as they wanted them to, and they have many regrets in life, although they enjoyed raising their children. It was wonderful. Okay, I'm not arguing that bit. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just saying that there are papers out there now saying that irritable bowel syndrome is quite common in women of that particular experience, let's say. But we have so many of these possible traumas, and even though we clear them, we get more every day. What's road rage? It's a trauma. We see a car crash. It's a trauma. We see people bombing other people on the news, and it can cause trauma. There's your pet dies. It's traumatic. Your family, grandparent, great-grandparent, whatever dies, is traumatic. We get it. So these things can be stored in the body, and they create blocks. in the body. And these blocks literally start to block over time your energy flow, your chi, your prana. And this is where energy healing and somatic release can come into play. Because whilst we can use things like psychoanalysis to talk through the problem, we can also, like in talking through the problem over and over and over and over and over, does that heal us or does that numb us to what happened? So it doesn't actually release it, it actually drives it even deeper and creates an even deeper shadow within us. Because no medical person will tell you, yeah, by talking about it over and over and over, it will become numb to us. Because let's face it, boxers train, martial artists train. Let's say hitting a tree, which, okay, hitting a tree creates lots of microfractures. It builds up the strength. It makes the bones stronger. But it also dumbs the nerves. So it makes the hand very resilient. Yes, it does. But it also dumbs it down. So just as through talking about trauma, the same thing can possibly happen. You see, that's why this isn't medical advice. It's not the standard stuff. But we can release these traumas through somatic release because they're blocks in the body. We can release them through pressure, through physical touch. We can release them through connecting that simply to pain and or pleasure, and release them by embracing them. We can release them energetically, either ourselves or with the help of energy workers. And by doing it that way, we don't necessarily have to relive the memory to release the block. By releasing the block, the memory will be changed. We can work on these things simultaneously at the same time, or together, having a balance of shadow work and somatic work, energetically or physically. And this is probably the most powerful way to do it, because we're hitting it from both sides. There are other things that we can use. Hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, very, very powerful things that can help without necessarily, people think hypnotherapy, you have to relive the experience. Not necessarily. And even in timeline therapy, even less. So there are many ways that we can attack the release of these traumas, these blocks. Yes, I've trained in many of these systems. I don't just do energy work and energy healing. To give my clients and my students the best possible chances for success. To move deeper, to move further, to move on. Now, if we talk about certain modalities, somatic release, kundalini activation, these things. So kundalini activation, people think it's about kundalini and raising kundalini. It's not. It's about somatic release energetically using prana. And it releases and it helps you to heal. And this is why you feel so wonderful doing it. Just nothing to do with kundalini. It's basically energetic somatic release. Powerful stuff. It's just people misunderstand it. What I do in my courses and my trainings is what comes after the healing phase. After what I like to call the de-armouring phase. Because de-armouring is very powerful. De-armouring can be done physically, energetically. Because your armour is all these traumas, all these things you've built up over your entire life, layer upon layer upon layer, that have caused you to have triggers and beliefs and biases and stresses and shadows, and de-armouring releases these things. And once we've released all these things, and one of these things that I haven't mentioned yet which is the biggest one to release, the most powerful one to release. We'll talk about that in a bit. But once we've released all these things, then that is when I offer for people after the healing to awaken. Because healing and awakening are very different. For Shakti to rise, for the energy to rise and connect to consciousness, if we haven't healed the majority of the things, it becomes, this is when Kundalini rising can become problematic. We have Kundalini syndrome, we have dark night of the soul. All of these things are caused because people are trying to go further. Either specifically, they're trying themselves, or they're being pushed by other people, or for some reason their ego is pushing them, causing spontaneous awakenings, or spontaneous risings, to be specific. But a lot of these spontaneous risings that people talk about aren't actually spontaneous risings. This gets complicated. It's more they're having life crises. Much like depression and anxiety come from the ego. The ego is not your enemy. The ego is your friend. I'm going to make more videos about that later on. But people fall into depression and anxiety. Okay, there are several reasons. Postpartum depression is a hormone imbalance. Also because you're very tired, very stressed. But a lot of depression and anxiety comes from, we have these traumas in our body. We live a very stressful life. We keep going and going and going and going and going. And our ego gets to a point saying, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to shut you down. Because otherwise we're going to end up at a bad place. It's your ego trying to protect you. Unfortunately, the medical solutions available today don't treat, for the most part. There are some great psychiatrists, some great psychologists and things out there, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, you're never treating the root, you're never treating the problem. And so it's very difficult to, because once you've treated that root, once you've released those traumas, once you change the amount of stress you have in your life, the depression can lift. If you're stuck in it for a long time, it's harder. We need to get, hormones rebalanced and chemicals rebalanced in the body, and we can do that. Diet, exercise, again, things that good quality doctors will tell you, rather than just giving you pills. But so the trauma can be stored in our body. And then we have the other side, the shadows. I haven't forgotten the most important one to tell you at the end. Not quite at the end. Then we have the shadows. The shadows are, we can call them, shadows aren't necessarily negative things, they can be positive things. So we could have, as a child, loved art, we were really good at it, but for some reason our parents, our schools pushed us down in art because we have to do other things, we have to get a good job, and we have to go to university, and we have to, the typical stuff. And so this love of art gets suppressed within us. That's a positive shadow, but it's still a shadow. And so with shadows, we have to visit them. And whilst we go through energetic or physical de-armoring, more shadows can be revealed over time. And it's like we're an onion and there are so many layers, and we take off a layer and we find another layer. So this can be a process. And it's almost like we talk about the archetypes, we talk about the gods. The gods aren't things sitting on clouds controlling us. They are basically the archetypes. They are metaphorical ideas and characterizations, both of humanity, but also of certain energy types. And so we can visit these and we can try and push them away. And of course that isn't going to work, because we can fight the ego and we will never win against the ego. We have to learn to embrace these things, to love these things, Because when we embrace something and we love it, it's easy to let it go. Whilst we push it away, it's not going to happen, is it? We've all tried that unsuccessfully. Just like we've tried to forgive someone that did something harmful to us. We never forgive someone else. We can only forgive ourselves. Because after the fact, it's only a memory in the past. We can only forgive ourselves for holding on to that memory and that block. It's only in the past. It's gone. It's done. Some people find that very hard to accept. But as soon as you do, and you understand that that has helped build you to who you are today, and they can be very tough, horrible things that have happened to us, but they've still helped us to get to who we are today. And when we can see that, and if we don't like ourselves today, still recognizing that fact can help us become the person we want to be. So now, what is that one thing, the biggest thing, the most problematic thing that, call it a trauma, call it a block, sits at the root. It is the thing that has to be released before we start working on the root energy where Shakti lies. This is, yes, fear. And I have many students and many clients that have worked through their traumas and de-armored and done lots of somatic release and worked on their shadows for years. And then as we go through the path, they finally admit they're still afraid. Some are open about it, some it takes time. We must release fear. Because without releasing fear, at least to not a natural level, because natural fear is good. And when I say natural fear, I mean we see a hungry lion in the savannah. We need natural fear to suddenly give us a kick of adrenaline so we can run away. We need natural fear so when we are walking atop a cliff and we look over and it's very windy, our system kicks in and says, step back. Yeah. Again, fear, if it's working effectively, is our friend along with ego to keep us safe. The job of the ego, the only job of the ego, is to keep you safe. It's not your enemy. It's not about killing the ego. All that nonsense. But you have to understand the ego is your friend. Your ego is there to keep you safe. Once you understand that, you can let go of all the armor around the ego, your program, that makes your ego work against you. Because it's still only trying to protect you, but it's got bad information. You want to go down that rabbit hole? There are some very unpopular ideas, but really get to the heart of this. We're not going there today. But so we have to release fear. I said it in another video when talking about chakras. We have to release fear before we open the root. We have to release desire, egoic ideologies, etc., etc. If you're interested in that, go watch my video talking about the chakras. Because it's systematic and it's not when we activate a chakra that will dissolve. No, we have to do it before we activate the chakra because otherwise we're getting into dangerous ground. But to really embrace fear as your friend, ego as your friend, but to de-armor everything else. Because again, many students say, oh yes, but I'm still afraid of this. I'm like, I always say to them, okay, let's change the fear to having a healthy respect for something. Perhaps you don't fully trust it. Perhaps you have to work. That's fine. But should you fear crossing the road on a zebra crossing? Or should you have a healthy respect that people will stop when you try to cross? However, they might not see you, their brakes could fail, so therefore we're always paying attention when we cross the road. Big difference, huge difference, when we internalize that to everything in our lives. Trauma is stored in the body. Trauma is stored not just in the physical body, it's stored in the mental body, it's stored in the energetic body. And this is why we can use different things to attack, to dissolve, to release these things. Pushing them away doesn't work. We have to embrace them. We have to be bold. That's the way we're going to go deep. We're going to be able to heal ourselves. With that said, I invite you to check out that chakra video, more videos on my channel. If you want to go deep into this, if you wish to have de-armoring sessions, join me at theawakeningenergy.com. If you've been through the healing processes and you want to train in awakenings, you'll find me there. I also offer group energy healing sessions, which cost less than the price of a cup of coffee a week. Join me there. I encourage you to share this video with anyone you think might find it useful. Feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you in another video.